Hello and welcome to the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast, the show where we go through every novel in the history of Dragonlance, starting from the very beginning and moving our way up, or at least as many as we can possibly get through before we get tired of this whole enterprise. But really, we've made it through one full book, so thank you all so much for joining us. Today, we're going to be starting with book 2. But before we do that, I'm Shivam Putt, and with me is my co-host, as always, John. Hi, John. How's it going?
Hey, everyone. I am doing okay. Very excited to start Dragons of Winter Night, though already this is a very different book than the first. I'm feeling it's very different.
Oh, yeah. Before we get into that, first off, thank you to all of you who have stuck with us for a full year as we've gone through the first novel. Hopefully, our pace will pick up a bit and we can go through. But the thing is, these first few novels set up so much of the world that there's just a lot to talk about and a lot of setting detail we have to go through. The thing is that Winter Night is one, it's like, this is the Empire Strikes Back of Dragonlance, right? Like, this is the novel where a lot of things happen, a lot of really cool things. And if I'm honest with you, this was one of my favorite of the trilogy because also the cover art ruled. It had some of the coolest cover art with Laurana, with Tasselhoff, with, Kitiara in her armor there before we knew that it was Kitiara.
Yeah, I was going to say that must have been a big surprise when people who picked up the book and they're like, who is this person?
Oh, yeah.
Why is there a Dragon Lord?
The sky hanging out in the background. Elmore was at his peak with this. Yeah, man, I love this book. I love this book. But before we get into it, there is one more show note that we have to share with you. We're very excited to say that we have started a Patreon for the show at patreon.com/Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. You could chip in $1 or $2 to help us keep this show on the air, which this random hobby, like this passion project of ours, has taken off and is growing. And hopefully we can continue to grow and continue to bring this to you. And all of your support helps us greatly. We're super grateful to you. And you can get the link directly in our show notes, probably elsewhere in the Facebook group. We're also going to be starting up a Discord channel for folks to come and chat with us and talk about Dragonlance and read through the books with us as we go.
We're not looking to make a fortune on this Patreon. Really, if it covers the hosting fees and I could pay for an editor, I would be happy. If we did become rich, that would be great. But really, I'm just looking.
We're not going to become rich off of this, man. The whole point, though, is more that John and I are both parents with jobs and like life things. And sometimes editing these shows is very difficult. However, if we can afford an editor, then we can afford to record a couple more times a month and maybe we can get some more episodes out.
Yeah.
So that's the ultimate goal, is even moving up to 2 episodes a month. Because look, we're not going to weekly. These things take way too long. But if we can get an editor, then we can at least take some of the pressure off and get some more eps out. That said, Dragons of Winter Night, let's go.
So the book starts with the Song of Nine Heroes. We're in the Hall of the Dwarves, and their leader calls for a bard to praise the companions. It's weird, I thought, that the book opens with this, because I was like, why are we praising the companions? What do the dwarves care? And, you read the Hammer section, which follows it, and then it makes a little sense. You're like, oh, okay, they just brought back this powerful relic. But then you're reading, like, I'm pretty sure one of these paragraphs is about Kitiara. And it's like, that hasn't happened yet. Like, what is going on here? This is so weird.
Okay, so there's a number of things. First off, Michael Williams is a dear friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years. I love to see him whenever we run into each other at cons. But this poem is a poem out of place and time. It did not need a frame story. Adding the frame story really undercuts it because literally the poem's little repeating refrain is 9 they were under the 3 moons. A dwarf is singing this. First off, the dwarf maybe knows that there are moons out there, presumably. He's gone outside maybe once or twice. Chances are he hasn't. But 2, they sure don't know there are 3 of them. New Atari,
Oh, these are the magic moons.
Yeah. The only moons.
Oh, that's right.
And the thing is, you can see Solinari and Lunatari, but for all that the stories keep harping on the fact that New Atari is the evil moon that only evil people and dark mages can see, it is the worst kept secret in all of Krynn. Literally everybody knows there's a 3rd moon out there. They can see the damn thing pass over the other 2 every couple of days because there's 3 things that are going around in circles and they end up, crossing paths all the time.
Astronomy is not their strong point in the world of Krynn.
Sure. I'm just saying, if you look up at the skies and notice regularly there's a random disc-shaped chunk of the other moons disappearing, maybe maybe even your thick farmer skull is going to be like, Margaret, I'm guessing there's another moon out there.
Has the cosmology ever been worked out? Maybe Nutari is the furthest planet away, so it would only ever be eclipsed. It never.
We have spent way more time and effort mapping out these stupid moon arcs because every edition of the game, because the moons are so important to the mages, they've all had these little moon charts that you can trace and follow. So if you care enough about it, you can have your moons in high sanction or low sanction. And when you're in high sanction, you get bonuses to your wizards. When they're in low sanction, your spells get worse or whatever. So we've spent a lot of time looking at this. And a bunch of my more science-minded friends have sat and actually mapped out and made models and done science style mathematical modeling of does this work or not. And it's like, every couple of weeks, these two moons are literally going to crash into each other. Because if you look at the loop that Nuitari is the closest to the planet.
Oh.
First off, the Night of the Eye is the big deal, right? So there's the big white one, which makes the white of your eye. And then there's a red one, which makes the red sclera of your eye. And then, of course, there's a black one that comes out, which means the black pupil of your eye. So if the pupil is the smallest dot, that means it's the closest to Krynn, right? If you look at the map in the modules, it's got an 8-day period of going full to full to new. So literally every week, you are seeing Nuitari cross the stars and skies all the damn time. And look, Solinari's hanging out there, and it takes a very, very slow arc because it takes a full month for Solinari to go around. Lunitari's got a 16-day cycle or something like that. I forget what the exact number is. But that moon is zooming. And unless Nuitari's putting on some super magic saying, you don't get to see me except for these one times when all three moons link up. But then we did the math, and the Night of the Eye happens every year and a half. Give or take.
So it's not that rare of an instance. It's just
not ooh, magic is super powerful and it's super rare. I'm like, okay, magic is super powerful. Yes. Super rare? No. Every 3-year-old will have seen the moon twice. I mean, the moon's in conjunction twice or whatever.
Oh no, I missed it. I guess I have to wait a year.
It's kind of like a solar eclipse. They happen all the time. We just have to be in the right, slice of the world to see it. Or lunar eclipses, which happen far more frequently than solar ones do. It's the same way. It's just everybody knows there's 3 moons. We just don't say anything about it because it makes the mages happy and it makes them feel special. Ooh, I'm the only one that can see the black moon. Sure, Raceland, that's nice. If it makes you happy that we can't see the black moon, then fine. This poem, though, it sure is a poem that is basically just hey, if you didn't read the last book, here's a rough, kind of very lengthy way of...
Here's a confusing way for you to get it.
to understand who our characters are. Why is the Dark Swordsman in the Heart of the Fire there? Or whatever, The thing is, who cares?
Yeah.
People like the poems. Michael Williams is a nice guy.
It's jarring because I'm pretty sure, I think I mapped it out where the second paragraph is Flint, the third is Taz, the fourth is Goldmoon, the fifth is Riverwind, the sixth, I think, is Kitiara, the seventh is Sturm, the eighth is Caramon, the ninth is Tanith, and the 10th is Raceland. And
yeah, it's definitely Kitiara.
Yeah, at least they don't say 9 heroes here, or do they? And it says there were 9.
9 they were.
And then there's 10 paragraphs where they talk about 10 people.
There's a whole short story in the 3rd short story compilation called Into the Heart of the Story, where Michael Williams basically writes an entire critical essay making fun of his own poem.
Uh-huh.
From the voice of a gnome who is declaring that he has been left out by this hack who doesn't want the world to know that there was a gnome hero who was doing the whole thing. It legitimately, I don't like this poem, but that story is funny as hell, and I read it pretty regularly just because it's so, especially once I grew up and learned what literary criticism was, it's just so funny. It is written from somebody who has definitely been an English teacher in a university and understands what academia is like. It's fantastic.
That's great. So after the poem, we have this, it's not considered a chapter. It's a short little introduction, I guess.
It's almost like a prologue.
Yeah, it's like a transition to book 1, and it's called The Hammer. It opens with the announcement of the Hammer of Karas?
I've always said Karas, but it's literally just, it's how does it sound in your head?
Okay, so he has the hammer, and they're in the halls of the mountain dwarves, and there's a scene of cheering, and Elistan comes in, and he's the one who's carrying the hammer. And I guess you're going to tell us about how we end up learning that we just skipped a whole section. That in between the end of the first book, where they had refugees from Pac-Tharxis in this protected valley, they've now moved in to the mountain home of the dwarves who gave them this quest to find the MacGuffin. And this is like an important MacGuffin. It turns out this hammer is the hammer you need to forge dragon lances.
Dragonlance.
So it's very important, but we come in and it's already done.
So this scene is really weird from a reader perspective if you have not played the modules, and it's really weird from a different reason if you have played the modules. Because so Margaret and Tracy right now are faced with this weird challenge where the book one ends with the fight against Verminard. They have the big epic fight at Pax-Tharkis, they fight the dragon, they do the whole thing. It's a perfect place to end, right? Like, it's an absolutely fantastic ending scene. They marry off Riverwind and Goldmoon. We get a beautiful kind of just denouement. The story is over.
Close curtain, perfect.
Right. And if they never wrote another novel, if the novel wasn't successful, at least there you've got a complete story. The problem is the first 4 modules, which made up the original arc that made up Autumn Twilight, didn't end at the battle that ended with Verminard. They actually have that little epilogue there. And then you end up with this chapter 14 afterward, The Doors of Thorbarden, where you have to literally take the 800 refugees who are fleeing Pax-Tharkis and take them to Thorbarden, because this is not just a novel. You have a responsibility as characters. You can't just cut to the next scene.
Yeah, we left them there in the mountains. I hope something good happened with them.
I'm sure they're fine, but like, it's a really fun, intense scene to play out with your players. You've got to like escort this large group of random poor farmers who've been starving in prison and take them through like the late October, November into the cold and run away from hell, and then take them to another hell to go to dwarves. And like, they go there, they open the door of the dwarves, and the dwarves are like, who the hell are you? What are you doing here?
Is this the first time they've opened up in 300 years? Or is only the south door closed for 300 years? Because I get the impression.
No. Oh, I guess we should just have 10 seconds to talk about dwarves, right? So there are mountain dwarves and hill dwarves. We've talked about the hill dwarves because Flint is one of them, and that's relevant later on. Hill dwarves are the ones who live on the surface. They're crafters, they're wanderers, they've got farming communities. Mountain dwarves are the ones who live deep in the caves in the mountains and are basically underground dwellers and don't come out.
They're your generic dwarf, right?
They're basically your generic mountain, like your,
Yeah, your token dwarf.
And so, like, what happened is they had this big kingdom of Thorbarden, and then the cataclysm hit, and they shut the gates. And they're like, all y'all crazies drove the gods away and made everything go psycho. We're going to go to safety. And they left the hill dwarves outside to die, basically.
Oh, wow.
And that's why Flinton has such a resentment to them. But these guys are like, look, man, we're just shutting the doors. We're staying safe because it's not safe. And then during Legends, and so it's about 160 AC, so about 160, 170 years afterwards, there's the Dwarfgate War, where the hill dwarves and humans go to fight against the mountain dwarves and try to break in, and they're, because it's a post-apocalyptic wasteland, they're trying to do anything. And Raistlin is trying to get into Skullcap, and this happens in Legends, and we'll deal with what happens there later.
Oh, I forgot that Legends is a time-traveling book.
Yeah. During that war, though, there's a mountain dwarf named Karas, which means knight in Solamnic. He was renamed by the knights for his valor. And he's got this famous hammer that they found, who is an ancient relic, and he's using it to fight for the mountain dwarf king against his cousins, the hill dwarves. And he's like crushed by this, he's has a crisis of conscience. And he goes and he takes his hammer, which has been the cause of so much strife, and he takes the body of the king's sons and everything, and he goes to Tomb, sets him up, and hides the hammer away. That is kind of why this hammer needs to be found. And this hammer that Karas was using, the hammer of Karas, as it were, is the original hammer that Rarix forged to make the original Dragonlances in Huma's time.
Yeah, it says that the return of the hammer will give the dwarf the right to reunite the dwarf clans under them and rule as a king. And then we're introduced to Hornfell, the Thane of the Hylar dwarves, and he's the one who's going to be king.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he plays a role in the rest of the book, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, they make all this deal about telling him who he is and who his family was, and his clan was the biggest one, but without the hammer, he couldn't be the king. But now that he has it, it's going to send out and it's going to unite the clans. And Sturm's really bitter about this. He keeps saying that, all of them are pretty grumpy. They don't like being underground. There's too much noise. But Sturm says, we could have kept the hammer. We can use it to forge dragon lances. And I'm thinking, wait, you don't know how to forge dragon lances. Like, this is...
Yeah, but remember, Sturm is a guy who followed a deer into the woods because that deer was in a story he heard from his childhood.
Well, and I guess the poem says, like, you need this hammer to forge the dragon lances. Maybe he just thinks that, like, you just do it. If I have the hammer and I tap on some metal, it'll make dragon lances.
As far as Sturm is concerned, if I show up with this dragon steel and I show up with this hammer, God will do the rest.
Yeah.
He is definitely a Jesus take the wheel guy. That's his whole shtick. His entire driving force is the Song of Huma. If it's in the song, it's got to be real. This hammer's in the thing. We got to do the thing. And fans were like put off a bit because they're like, hey, what happened to that whole chapter at the end of the book where they go into Thorbarden? And then like the fans like me who had come novel first were like, what the hell? What is this hammer? Why do we care about this at all? What's going on? Where did they get this from? Many, many, many years later, I was at Gen Con. What year was that? Let's see. Dwarven Depths came out in 2006. So this must have been Gen Con 2004, 2005. I was sitting there and I was hanging out with Margaret and Tracy. They were having a conversation and I was just sitting next to them because I was nosy kid or whatever. And I was just minding my own business. And I hear Tracy say, if there's a story there, then we need to tell it. And Margaret says, well, it sounds like a really good idea and a really fun thing we should do again. And I turn like, again? And they look at me like, Tal, if you open your mouth and say a single word about this to anybody, we will pull your hair out by the sock and hang you by your tongue. They gave me like a Kender threat. Basically, they're like, you must promise to never, ever tell anyone anything you've heard. And I'm like, and then, of course, a few months later, they announced that Margaret and Tracy are coming back to Dragonlance. And I was like, oh, wait. And then they're like, because the conversation went on a little bit more. They talked a little bit about dwarves and a little bit about other things that they were doing. And I was like, dwarves? What do you care about dwarves for? And then later on, they announced that they're doing a series called Lost Chronicles. And the first book is Dragons of Dwarven Depths, which is basically the story that takes place between Autumn Twilight and Winter Night. They did a trilogy of these, Dwarven Depths, High Lord Skies, and Hourglass Mage. Honestly, they're three of my favorite Dragonlance books ever written. High Lord Skies might be my absolute favorite Dragonlance book, but they each take place. Basically, this one takes place between 1 and 2. High Lord Skies, it takes place where Lorana goes down to Icereach to find that lost Dragonlance and goes and comes back later. And so there's like a scene in, I think, Winter Night or Spring Dawning where that happens, where I don't remember which book it's in because I just keep reading the compilations, where they go down to Icereach and they just kind of skip it over again with another narrative poem. And Hourglass Mage is the story of Raistlin getting the key of knowledge and switching over from being a red robe to a black robe.
So it's a transition from Chronicles to Legends.
Yeah, and also just like when he disappears in Spring Dawning as a red robe and shows up again as a black robe, and they're like, what the hell happened? Well, we get his story and we find out what all these things are. It's a phenomenal story. It's a phenomenal story. It was also the last Dragonlance novel ever written until the new Dragonlance novels.
And we'll get there eventually, one day, maybe.
One day. But for now, the more relevant part is the heroes of the Lance have gone deep into the heart of Thorbarden. They have found this hammer they worked out with Armenkaris and everybody. They got the hammer. They bring it back to the great Thane Glade Hornfell Keitel, who is the leader of the Hylar. The Hylar are the leading largest group of the mountain dwarves. I hope we get to do Dwarven Nations because I love that book so much. But yeah, so Hornfell's there, and he becomes the new Thane of Thorbarden.
The reason they needed the hammer is because that's what they're trading the hammer to allow the refugees to live in Thorbarden.
Yes.
I thought it was weird because they describe Elistan as muscular. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? He was on death's bed in the last book. And now he's muscular. Let me see if I can find it here. Elistan knelt at the foot of the dais, a politic gesture, for otherwise the tall, muscular cleric would stand face to face with the dwarf, despite the fact that the dais was a good 3 feet off the ground. So he's turned from like an old, frail man into like...
He's not muscular.
Now he's 6 foot tall and rippling muscles, probably tan, hair flowing in the wind.
I guess finding the word does good things to your constitution, huh?
Clerics does a body good.
Yeah, no, Elisand is still an old geezer. I don't care what you say, Margaret Tracy. Yeah, so basically he sits there because he's the leader of the people. He was the big political brouhaha, whatever. And he says, accept this gift of our people. And he, of course, Sturm's like, ransom, right? They have created this hammer for the right to have shelter and to like allow these refugees to be protected, which is fair and reasonable. It's important. They got to do something about 800 folks that they're dragging along with them.
Yeah. Sturm and Tanis have a real fight about it, where Tanis is like, oh, and you'd go off and be a new Huma and you'd leave these 800 people to die. And he's like, no, I wouldn't. I'd figure something out, but like, we need the hammer. And Raistlin interrupts their fight. He conjures up a Dragonlance and he holds it out to Sturm and he's taunting him. This is a holy item to Sturm. So, of course, he's like mind blown and he goes to touch it and then it disappears. And Tanis says that was a bad joke. And Raistlin says, he does not joke. Where's the line here? A joke, the mage whispered. His strange golden eyes followed the night as Sturm walked into the thick blackness of the dwarven city beneath the mountain. You should know me better, Tanis. The mage laughed, the weird laughter Tanis had heard only once before. Then bowing sardonically to the half-elf, Raistlin disappeared, following the night into the shadows.
Yeah, no, Raislin's not joking. He's just a jerk. Definitely taunting. He's definitely sitting there and taking this lance out, makes it up.
Do you think that Tracy and Margaret here are setting up that stuff happens to Sturm in later books, spoilers, and, you know, it's almost like he's not quite worthy to hold the Dragonlance. And in the end, you know, his quest for it does destroy him. Do you think this is part of it here, where he's, you know,
100%.
Yeah, Raistlin is seeing. I don't know how Raistlin is seeing this stuff. Maybe he's not seeing it, but he has everyone's button in this party. He knows that Sturm does not feel that he should be wearing that armor, right?
Well, because look, Raislin's entire gimmick, his entire whole point is knowing the insecurities of all the people around him, because he is so insecure himself. The only way he can protect himself is by making sure he knows everybody's buttons and how to trigger them and how to make them like, because these are all defense mechanisms for people who are wounded, like Raistlin is, right? Like think about how much better this story, or like how different this story would have been if Raistlin had gone to therapy, right? Like it's just like if he sat and had a counseling moment and said, like, you know what, man, all these people hated me, and they're like, well, you were kind of mean to them, but
well-adjusted people don't go on epic quests.
Right, but Raislin's whole point though is that like he knows these people inside and out. They know him inside and out. They've been like grew up together. They're family. And he knows that Sturm has one single mind, and he's already seen it with, like, you know, the trip into Darkenwood and all the other things. Everything that Sturm does, his actions are dictated by this lance. And he's just like sitting there like, look, man, if I make this stupid lance appear in front of you, you know that I'm just making an illusion. I'm a red mage. That's what red mages do. We're illusionists. But Sturm is still going to let his dreams get so wildly out of control that he's going to believe that there's a real one there, right?
Yeah.
And it's not even a real one, but he's just like...
Yeah, it's just an illusion. But he wants it to be real so bad that he's willing to risk looking like a fool.
Yeah, like, here's the thing, right? Like, there's your Dragonlance Knight, Raistlin hissed. Without the benefit of the hammer or the silver arm, will you ride with it into glory, remembering that for Huma, with glory came death? Sturm's eyes flashed. He caught his breath in awe as he reached out to take hold of the Dragonlance. To his amazement, his hand passed right through it. The Dragonlance vanished even as he touched it. More of your tricks, he snarled. Spitting on his heel, he stalked away, choking in anger. Right? So he is so frothing at the idea of losing this hammer, of losing the possibility that he might someday walk in his hero's footsteps, that Raistlin, even doing the most obvious in front of him joke. In front of him, he casts a spell and makes the thing appear.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not even that he did it behind their back. He literally walks in front of them and goes like, widdly, 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 and makes a Dragonlance appear. And Sturm is so desperate for this to exist that he is like just willing to do anything for it. And yeah, I think Margaret and Tracy are definitely setting up this character and his like foolish, almost just like Quixotic quest, right?
Another thing I just realized is how do these guys know what a lance looks like? The only one who has seen pictures so far is Taz, and Fizban memory wiped him.
Made his memory wipe, right?
They talk about Dragonlances and they say this is a Dragonlance, but they don't know what Dragonlances look like.
Well, that's because, like, if you look at the text, they're very clever. They're like, oh, it's a footman's lance. It's 12 foot long. It was made of silver, barbed and gleaming. It's made of polished wood handle, whatever. He's basically just making a horse's lance, a lance that a knight would hold. But he's just like fancying it up a bit. You know, it's like, ooh, we know that they're silver because they use silver to make the thing. So what if my illusion has some silver in it? This is like, it's like when you're reading a video game article about the forthcoming console and they have, you know, like a weird version of it. And it's like, this is an artist representation.
A mock-up.
Yeah, like Braceland knows what a Dragonlance looks like because he knows what a lance looks like and he knows what Knights of Solamnia look like. And he's like, if I was a Knight of Solamnia, what would I make my lance look like? And he's just kind of like, widdly, widdly, widdly. Let's put some roses on there and stick a heron. They love all this nonsense. You know, it's like it's not the actual Dragonlance. He's just like, he can say whatever he wants.
Yeah. Sturm bought it.
Sturm is so desperate that he'll buy a toothpick that Raceland calls a Dragonlance.
Yeah. And that's the end of Hammer. And we start officially with Book 1, Chapter 1, White Winged Ships, Hope Lies Across the Plains of Dust. And the little picture here is what I can only assume is the
Hammer of Karas itself. The thing about this chapter is that we realize that humans are very discontent, right? Like Hedrick the Theocrat, who is already like just a vile and terrible human, is sitting there and just like raising up the emotions of all the people who are in there. And he's like, you know, we're humans. We don't deserve to be, we're better than living here under the rock like some dwarves or something. We can't grow food on the side of a mountain. We need to go back to our lands. I say those who force us to leave our homeland should provide us with new ones. And Sturm's like, what, you think that, is he talking about the Dragon High Lord? I'm sure they'll be happy to give him some. I love that line.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what he was thinking. It's like, well, I guess you could have stayed in that little valley, but...
Yeah, well, Hedrick is basically like, these stupid heroes made us leave. They should give us new stuff. And Sturm's like, we didn't do it, buddy.
Yeah, like, we were just trying to save your lives. As soon as the snow melted in the passes, the Draconians were going to come.
Yeah, exactly. They were as good as dead, but, you know, when people are angry and bitter, they're just listening to the guy with charisma. They're not listening to realistic thought.
And so their plan, Elistan calls to send a delegation to Tarsus. He talks about a little bit about the Durkan's tomb, which is where they got the hammer. I don't know why they're so obsessed with Tarsus. All of a sudden they think like Tarsus, and no one's heard of it from 300 years. It's really a wing and a prayer that they're hoping on here.
A winged ship and a prayer even.
Yeah.
Well, first off, there is an interesting discontinuity here. Later on, they do change the name Durkan to being Duncan because they go and talk about this very dwarf in Legends, and his name is King Duncan, not King Durkan. And they're like, oh, fiddles. But they go back and they kind of like fudge over it. They do this as well later on where they've got like one of the dwarves is named Halthwaite. And later on in, I think, Elven nations or in Dwarven nations, something, they changed his name to Harl Thrustwhite. But it's just the humans couldn't say that, so they just Halthwaited him. And it's like, okay, well, that's at least a realistic explanation. The fifth module that came out, Dragons of Mystery, was actually the first ever source book of Krynn. It was like the first one that actually said, hey, you're in this world. Let's give you some information about who the gods are and all those things. It's a very well-written and first canonical explanation of what Dragonlance is. So it's like super important, but was superseded by like everything ever later. Module number 6 was called the Dragons of Ice. And that is the beginning of Dragons of Winter Night. And that's where we start here, where they're like, you guys have gotten the refugees from Pax Arcus into Thorbarden. Here's what the prologue says at the beginning. The refugees from Pax Arcus are in the Dwarven Kingdom of Thorbarden, the safest place for them until the wars are over. True safety will be achieved only when the dragon armies are defeated. Your purpose in coming to the port of Tarsus was to obtain passage for the refugees to a safe place far from conflict. Tarsus, a bustling center of trade and travel during the days before the Cataclysm, was the only hope you had of finding ships to take the refugees away. Now that sounds like, wait, you're talking a lot in past tense right there.
Yeah.
Right you are, sir, for the next sentence is, but here, as in much of Krynn, things are not as they once were. The Cataclysm caused the seas to recede 40 miles, leaving Tarsus a dusty plains town. Beach ships still lie scattered about the ancient bay, etc., etc. Tarsus is an awesome city. It's super fun to play in. It's super fun to run games in. I've had a lot of fun. And there's also a really cool novel called Murder in Tarsus, which I just It was like a murder mystery. They had a weird sub-series that TSR put out. One was like a Forgotten Realms murder mystery, and one was a Dragonlance murder mystery. They're not really like canonically tied to anything, but Tarsus was really cool and really well described. Anyways.
So the dwarves, they're preparing for war, but they're not worried, right? Because they can just close their doors. And we learn that that's what they did. They cut off the north from the south, right? I guess there's a bottleneck here.
The Thorbarden Mountains, which is a gigantic, huge cavern system underneath the Carolus Mountains in like the southish of Krynn, is basically this big insurmountable barrier between Avanesenia area, where like Solus and Haven are, and Qualinesi, and the Plains of Dust and Tarsus and Sylvanesi and all points east of there. They have two gigantic steel screw doors, one at the north gate and one at the south gate. And one of them was ruined in the Cataclysm, so it was already basically sealed off by like cave collapses. And the other one is, I believe, Southgate is the one that's open.
We get a description of it. When closed, it seals off the Dwarven Kingdom. It's a massive stone plug.
Yeah, it's a stone plug covering a steel sheath on the other side. If they shut that door, you're not getting in or out. So they're basically just happy to hang out there forever. They're very happy to let the refugees live there if they want to, because who cares, whatever, you're humans. But like the book says, they were safe to be sure, but the refugees, mostly farmers, were not happy living underground in the huge dwarven caverns. In the spring, they could plant crops on the mountainside, but in the rocky soil would only produce a bare living. The people wanted to live in sunshine and fresh air. They didn't want to be dependent on the dwarves. And then we find out that it's Elistan who recalled the ancient legend of Tarsus the Beautiful and its gull-winged ships.
Yeah.
But that's all they were, legends. As Sansa pointed out, no one in this part of Ansalon heard anything about the city of Tarsus since the Cataclysm 300 years ago. The dwarves basically shut the door, so there's no messengers going through. So as far as we know, there may or may not be a city there. But like the humans are like, yeah, but we want to leave, which is like the dumbest thing in the world.
Yeah. And it's like, you guys will go and you'll book passage on these ships, right? There's like assumption after assumption after assumption.
Oh yeah, they're like, you heroes, you can handle it.
1, Tarsus is still there. 2, Tarsus has boats. 3, people will want our money. It's been 300 years. God knows what they're using for money. 4, there are peaceful places, and that's what Raistlin tells them. He says, there's no peace in the world. Takhisis and Paladine are on the planet. Dragons are everywhere, right? Like, there's no peace. So the sooner you come to realize that, the better off we'll be. And of course, it's Raistlin. So he failed his charisma check and everyone ignored him.
Yeah, Raistlin's basically sitting there doom and gloom saying, and these guys have just been through hell. They've had their whole like cities and everything wiped out. And these heroes come out of nowhere, save them, and bring them to the dwarf town. They're like, they're heroes. They can handle it. They can fix this. Go hero it up. You're fine.
Yeah.
We don't want to hear no doom and gloom. Just get us out of this pit that you brought us into. These ungrateful farmers are sitting here like, are you kidding me, dude? Like, I just saved your entire life and civilization. Maybe you can eat some grub and deal with it for a minute while I handle this. And they're like, no, I think you're going to get us out of here now. And it's like, oh, you whiny babies. I swear to God.
And then we move into like I said, they're outside of the South Gate. They're talking. Tanis believes Raistlin. Elistan says not to give up hope. There must be places in the world. And I have a little note here where it's like, he is wrong. He is a bad prophet. Like, Elistan is not. He's not talking to Paladine when he says that. And then Elistan and Sturm leave. And then I think here, this is the setup of like the whole subplot of this book. Because Tanis and Laurana start arguing. And Tanis is, how come you're so hot for Elistan? And now we know why Elistan's got to be so buff, because otherwise it wouldn't make any sense. And Kitiara comes up and Laurana says, I do love Elistan, but it's not amorous, right? I only love you, Tanis. But sometimes I don't even know why, because like you're kind of a dick.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want me there since I showed up in the Slamaree. You weren't interested in my help, but Elistan is interested. Like, I have skills and he's willing to let me use them and grow, right? He's being a good mentor. And Tanis can't see that. He's just like, no, you belong to me. But why? Because I don't even like you. And yeah, there's this whole monologue where he's torn between Kitiara and Laurana.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like, before we head on to Tanis and Laurana's story, one thing did get me out of that scene was that council meeting where Raistlin is like, you guys are all idiots and, there's no peace. The council members are laughing about like, so Raistlin's like, there's going to be dragons all over the place. The gods are walking. And the council's like, oh, children's tales. I'm like, bro, you literally just escaped a dragon. Like, a dragon exists.
They literally just saw God made witness when Elistan was healed, right?
Right.
Like he's translating magical plates.
First off, you saw that A, dragons exist. B, Verminard is summoning Satan herself to do evil things. C, Elistan is talking to the literal creator, right? Like he's talking to God and translating and healing. He has been given the word. He is now a muscular young man. He was not a muscular young man 10 days ago, and you're talking about children's stories? Come on.
Yeah.
This is an interesting scene because Tanis is given a bit of a rude awakening, right? Like he's sitting there and he is so caught up in his own business. He hasn't spent any attention or time on Laurana at all. And Laurana is over here and she's, been raised to be a leader, to be a noble, to listen to the people, right?
She's like second to Elistan.
Yeah.
Like he's having her do all his logistics and
she's like his secretary, It's like there's a really interesting thing here where it's like, listen to Elistan, Tanis. He's wise. When we left our Qualinesi, we had a plan, etc. And then Tanis replied with, Raistlin says that hope is a denial of reality. I'm like, yeah, Raistlin would say that, wouldn't he? And then, of course, Elisan's right there, and he's like, I'm sorry, Elisan, I'm just tired. You're fine. Your God's great. Lovely, whatever. But you can tell that Tanis himself is not putting a lot of credence into this God stuff.
But he's so much darker in this book than he was in the first book.
Oh.
And it only gets darker.
Well, yeah, but I mean, book one, he saw one of his buddies get turned into like cheese, right? Like when the acid washes over Riverwind and all this, and he's got a lot of things going on in his head.
Yeah.
He's got to deal with like, oh, his girlfriend showed up, but also the chick he's in love with is somewhere working for someone.
Well, and there's just a lot of stress. I mean, I think they did a good job in the first book talking about how he didn't really like being the leader. But
oh no, he did not want to be the leader at all.
The group has made him the leader, and he does a good job at it. That's the other thing is like it's not that he's a bad leader. It's just now that he has to lead 800 people, and I think he's kind of buckling under that pressure.
Well, suddenly he finds himself not just a leader of like a group of 12 of his buddies. He's dealing with being the governor of a kingdom.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the hell? What do I do with this?
Well, and people keep turning to him, right? They keep going like, Tanis, what do you think? And he's like, stop asking me. I don't want to be in charge of this. But it's like, no, dude, like, you're a leader. That's what you have to do. So.
And then, of course, they're like, well, go ask Elistan. It's like, Elistan? Elistan was dying like an idiot 3 days ago. I'm not going to listen to him. A lot of this comes through here is like, Margaret desperately wants to kill Elistan. She hates Elistan. She's like, he's too good. He's boring. He does nothing. He adds nothing. And of course, Tracy's like, you cannot kill the only cleric of Paladine in the entire story. That is not going to fly. Sorry, lady. That's not going to happen.
Because I clearly think Elistan is modeled after Joseph Smith, the founder of the LDS Church.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%.
But I think it would have been better. It's like we're getting the primary school version of Joseph Smith here. Like Elistan is all good, he's all wise, and like, man, Joseph Smith was not all good and not all wise. There are lots of stuff there, and they could have made Elistan a compelling character if they had maybe leaned in a little more on the person he is.
But the thing is that you can tell that Tracy had a lot more invested in Elistan than Margaret did. If it had been like only Tracy, I think Elistan would have been a huge main character. He would have been one of the big like figures leading because like
he would have been like Tanis, huh?
Yeah, the native lady came and gave him plates. He is now the bringer of the word. Of course he's going to be the most important character. And Margaret, who's writing the story, is like, hell no. That's not, no, there's no story here. If you want that, the Book of Mormon's right there, and it tells you just fine, and you can take your Lehis and Nephis and go do whatever you want. Tracy is like, you can't kill Elistan. And Margaret's like, yet. Fine.
The journey begins. Elistan tells him that what he's reading in the discs. Tanis wants to believe, right? But he can't, this is always interesting to me because in a world where it's not like you need faith in this world. There are demonstrable acts of gods. So it's always interesting to me in books where it's like, oh, you see the gods talk to you. There are clearly miracles happening. Magic is happening. And then someone's like, well, I don't know if I believe. And it's like, what?
You don't need to believe.
There's no belief here, buddy. The gods exist. You don't need to have faith in them. That is not necessary here.
No.
They are up in your business already. Like, a little late for faith, Tanis.
Like, Like, you have more gods right now dealing with you than you ever wanted. Really, like, you would have faith in not having gods. That would be nice. These dudes are just in your pants all day long. It's funny though, like, you were right. You brought up that, like, Tanis is like just having this weird spike of jealousy. He's like, oh, look at you, Lorana. You're hanging out with this man who's a cleric of Paladin, but all he's a man, no, but you can to no doubt testify. All I hear from you is Elasan so wise. Ask Elasan. He knows what to do. Listen to Elasan, Tanis. And of course, Laurent's like, shut your goddamn mouth, asshole.
It's like a high school freshman
Exactly.
complaining about his first girlfriend having guy friends.
Right. And she's like, he's an old man and I'm still like in my equivalent of my 20s. I love him as a great teacher. Get over yourself.
How dare you accuse me of your own failings, Laurana returned.
Yeah. She's like, look, man, you may have only one way to interact with other people, but I can have nuanced relationships because I am not self-absorbed douchebag. Maybe calm down. Take a cold shower and cry to yourself,
Get over yourself.
Yeah, literally, she's just like, hang on, buddy. No, I'm not going to sit here and take this from you. I like her a lot. She's like, well, I have grown up. It's like, I've suffered. I can deal with it, and I don't need you. Of course, Tanis like, I'm sad.
He does this thing where he's like, well, I'm not going in there. He punishes himself by deciding to stay outside in the cold. They start closing the doors. Everyone leaves. And he's like, I'm not going back. I'm going to sleep under the stars. It'll show them. Me being miserable will sure make them all feel bad.
It's definitely a 12-year-old, vindictive punishment. It's like, I hurt myself because of you. It's like, okay, bro.
And then they talk about the Plains of Dust, where nothing and no one has lived for 300 years. But why do I feel so bad about it? There's a lot of heavy-handed ominousness here.
I do like this one sentence. So it's like, thinking of his journey as he walked, Tanis looked up into the night sky. It was beautiful, glittering with stars, but 2 gaping black holes marred the beauty. Little bracelets missing constellations.
Yeah.
Holes in the sky, holes in himself. And I'm like, oh, that's a good one. That's a good line.
Yeah, it's this good line. The sense of menace grew, the sense of eyes watching and ears listening.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no, what's his name here to be the spy anymore. So who could it be?
Yeah, we got no Eben, so what are we going to do? But of course, the chapter can't end without, Elasan sitting here preaching. Look, I read the book. They're gods. It's good and stuff. And Tanis, I love that though. Tanis, he's like, wow, the gods are here. And he's, I guess. The thing is, they bring up a really good point. It's like, he is so currently self-absorbed that he has no room in his mind or his soul or his internal being to deal with the gods existing or not existing or care at all, right? He's just so consumed with his own passions and his own problems that all these old stories, whether they're true or not, even though he literally knows he brought the word back himself, he was the one who got the discs of Mishakal, and he's like, okay, I know they're real. I talked to her,
Well, he saw Mishakal. He saw Riverwind brought back to life.
He literally saw a man go from complete puddle of goo to being a fully raised human. And he's just so self-absorbed right now that he can't even accept that. That's what the point that they're trying to make here is that this dude has no clarity in his life, so much so that the literal thing he was searching for and the thing that he found, he can't even take a moment to accept.
That's a good bit of Christian doctrine. You have to let the gods in, right? They can't.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the point here is if you're so self-absorbed with your own life, even when you're seeing miracles, you can't accept them.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly. And that's a big theme of Winter Night. That is one of the big overarching themes really of this whole section of Dragonlance is like, if the gods are right there, if you choose not to see them or you're blinding yours, like in Legends, which we'll talk about in depth when we get to it, one of the main characters is Chrysania, the cleric of Paladine. And her whole thing is that she is so blinded by her own ego that she is unable to see the presence of God until she is literally blinded. And like similarly, Tanis is walking through this world, seeing the miracles and can't accept or appreciate or even acknowledge it just because he is so
wrapped up,
unstill. Like he is so lacking in stillness of mind that he can't appreciate that this exists. He's wrapped up in his own problems. And so Fizban, you notice a lot in this story, is just sitting there like, homie, deep breaths.
Well, and he'll break him down until he's the tool he wants him to be. So
you know what, man? When you're a god with a hammer, every human looks like a nail.
And that leads to chapter 2.
Between Master and Dragon, Dismal Journey.
And we get a cool picture of a dragon here.
Yeah, dude, the interstitial art in this book is so good. It's so good.
And this is an interesting chapter because we've done the thing where they only did it once, I think, in the other book, where we've switched to the bad guy side, right? There's only at the very end of the book
Yeah.
where we getting scenes from Ember's point of view and Verminard's. But here we are, the second chapter, and it opens with the dragon sighed, flexed his huge wings, and lifted his ponderous body from the warm, soothing waters of the hot springs. Emerging from a billowing cloud of vapor, he braced himself to step into the chill air. The clearer winter air stung his delicate nostrils and bit into his throat. Swallowing painfully, he firmly resisted the temptation to return to the warm pools and began to climb to the high rocky ledge above him. So here we are, a dragon. And we learn...
And we have not been introduced to any good dragons, so there's only one type of dragon this could be.
Yeah, and we learned that his name is Sky, and he does not like the winter.
For literal decades, I called him Ski. Until I met a friend of mine who had Sky as his handle, and he was like, it's Sky. And I'm like, oh my freaking God, it's a blue dragon named Sky.
Yeah.
How did I miss this for literal decades?
He says he doesn't like the winter, and I'm like, you and me both, buddy. I already like this dragon.
Well, I mean, because, like, look, he's a blue dragon, right? Like, now, as we discussed in episode, like, 1 or 2 or whatever of this story, blue dragons live in the desert heat. They are dragons of lightning, dragons of electricity and energy, and dragons of dry, hot, barren places. So wherever winter is for him is not the place he wants to be. And so he goes and looks about for his master. And he finds a Dragon High Lord, who they do not name.
No.
Very clever of them at the beginning of the book to not name the Dragon High Lord. Standing on an outcropping of rock, an imposing figure in horned dragon helm and blue dragon scale armor. The High Lord, cape whipping in the chill wind, was gazing with intense interest.
They never gender. It's always the High Lord, not he, she, or they. It's really some awkward writing at times to make it so you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, you almost wish that they had good old gender-neutral pronouns or non-binary pronouns or something. It's a really good obfuscation job where if you don't know the trick here, the reveal is super powerful later, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the High Lord's sitting there reconnoitering and hanging out. Margaret says in the book, we didn't want to give away this early who the book was, so we don't name the High Lord. It was difficult to write the scene without using pronouns that would identify him to an astute reader.
Yeah.
And also, very cleverly, the story is told through the eye of Sky.
Yeah. And we learn that they're supposed to be in the north.
Mm-hmm.
They're not supposed to be this far south. This was the Red Dragon's job. He says, the occupation of Tarsus had long been planned in fact by another Dragon High Lord, for this land was under the command of the Red Dragons. So he's like, but here I am, in the south, cold and miserable.
Dragonlance, the continent of Ansalon, takes place in the southern hemisphere. That's why when they're talking about the frigid south and like the deep chill, and that's why when we go to the South Pole later on, it's like it's a big, it's all southeast, south.
So the north is it's like the equator, right?
The very northern end of Ansalon is the equator, and then like there's a huge ocean, and on the other side of the world, in the northern side, is the continent of Talatis, which is like 3 times bigger than Ansalon. But we never go there in the main series. It's my favorite place in the goddamn setting. Margaret hates it and she refuses. But, anyways, that's a discussion between me and Margaret and maybe you guys later.
So we learn that the Dragon Lord is like a winner, right? All the dragons trust them. They've won numerous victories, never lost a dragon.
Yeah, but like right now, this story, even without like them talking to each other, we know a few things. One is that this blue dragon and High Lord are not supposed to be here, like you just said. They're supposed to be in the north. Because the Red Dragon High Lord is dead, right?
There's also this personal aspect because the Red Dragons don't want us here. The city's easy prey. And then the High Lord says they're there because their spies say they are or will be here shortly.
Mm-hmm.
Sky's like, who cares? Why are we doing all this work for a bunch of itinerant adventurers? And it's like, it's fine that they killed Verminard. That's not a big deal.
There is a little weird bit here where he's like, man, we're losing a fortune in steel. And it's like, you're the Dragon High Lord. And the Dragon High Lord's main dragon, you don't need money. You have all the infinite resources you could ever want.
Yeah.
And of course, the High Lord says, like, I could buy Tarsus if I really wanted to. And the war in the north is fine. And this is the first time we hear the word of Ariacus, the leader of the Emperor of Antlon, basically the head of the Dragon High Lords. The Lieutenant Baccharis, who is one of the other mega bad guys who shows up later. The High Lord reminds the Blue Dragon that these vagabonds just happened to kill Takhisis' chief cleric.
When Sky is not impressed by Verminard, he's like, bah, the man had already dug his own grave. He was obsessed, lost sight of the true purpose. The same might be said of others, as he's like side-eyeing his boss.
Who could you be obsessed with, High Lord? This is really interesting, though, because we get a view from the High Lords, right? Like, obsessed? Yes, Verminard was obsessed, and there are those who should be taking that obsession more seriously. He was a cleric. He knew what the damage of the knowledge of the true gods, once spread among the people, can do to us, said the High Lord. Now, according to this report, the people have a leader in this human called Elisan, who's become a cleric of Paladine, worshippers of Mishakal, bringing true healing back to the land. No, Verminard was far-seeing. We are in great danger, is basically the point here. Is like, the High Lord is like, yo, our advantage, which was literally we have the power of the gods and the dragons, is suddenly gone. So we better start acting. And the dragon is like, I don't care about this. I can eat Elistan. Can we just kill him?
It's like, this priest Elistan doesn't lead the people. He leads 800 wretched humans, former slaves of Verminard and Pax Tharkus. Now they are holed up in Southgate with the mountain dwarves. It's like, besides, our spies report they are traveling to Tarsus even as we speak. By tonight, this Elistan will be ours, and that will be that. So much for the servant of Paladine.
Yeah. And of course, the High Lord's like, I don't care about the cleric either, dude. Chill.
Yeah.
And then Sky's like, oh, who? Like, well, there are 3 in whom I have particular interest.
I wonder who those 3 could be.
You'll find out later.
But I will provide you with descriptions of all of them. It is to capture them that we participate in the destruction of Tarsus tomorrow. Here are those whom we seek. ... And then scene cut to Tanis.
Yeah, and then of course, Tanis is walking across the frozen plains, punching through the windswept snow, and he's just like, we're freezing and trekking through Antarctica, and this sucks. We could have been inside the mountains, guys. You wanted to leave. And of course,
we get a good reintroduction to the characters, right?
Yeah.
They tell us a little bit about Sturm and Caramon, Gilthanis, Riverwind, Goldmoon, Elistan, Lorana, Tika, Raceland, Flint, Taz. They're all here. Even Gilthanis, which I thought was interesting. I didn't realize that he came along with them at this part.
Well, if you think an elf is going to hang around in the caverns under Thorbarden,
I thought he would return to...
Remember, Qualinos was basically like laid to waste.
But they don't know what happened to it. We don't know that it was laid to waste.
That's true. But he's also like, I'm not leaving my sister with you, Tanfalos.
I guess, because the last we heard is that the dragons left, right? And Verminard stayed. But we also know that as soon as said in the end of the first book, that as soon as the Draconians realized Verminard had stayed back at Pax Tharkus, they turned the army around, right? And they had to spend months digging out the...
Yeah, but I think Gilthanis has another purpose here.
Mm-hmm.
And we will discuss that as it goes. But the thing is,
okay,
I think it also makes sense that he would want to be sticking with his sister. And obviously, Tanis and this cleric have something going on that he needs to know. And it's more valuable to the elves for him to be there than not.
That could be the case, yeah.
Because he can't trust Lorana is going to bring this information back. And of course, so Sturm is standing there and marching with Tanis, but he's wearing his full antique hard plate armor and sinking deep into the snow.
Can you imagine how cold that is? To be in full plate armor, walking in snow?
Dude.
It's like walking inside a refrigerator.
I have opened a car handle door that was in the snow in like Lake Tahoe or whatever. And it's just like icy, like metal sucks the heat out of the air. There's nothing. There's no insulation at all. Yeah, okay, maybe you're wearing some wool or something underneath it. But he's a walking, like, ice chest.
Yeah.
Right? Like, my dude is...
It's got to be miserable.
I'm surprised he didn't just die of... Yeah, but you know what? Suffering, we suffer for our faith. It's like, I suffer because my Lord suffered. Isn't that the way it's supposed to be? But yeah, like all the rest of them, Gilthanis is here because he it's almost like he's driven by spite. Like, he's here to get screw you, Tanis. That's why. We get to see the party again, just in the off chance you didn't read book 1. Of course, Elisan gets his hagiography here. It's like, look at the cleric of Paladine, resplendent in white robes that gleamed even against the snow. But now he's no longer muscular. He's white-bearded with thinning hair, but still an imposing figure. the kind of man that might well attract a young girl. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa.
They need to decide what this guy looks like.
And also, maybe let's not have old men attracting young girls.
Yeah.
Few men could look into his ice blue eyes and not feel stirred, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, and then, of course, his faithful assistant, Lorana.
Well, and they play her up.
Well, she's the main character of this story, man.
Yeah, she helped Elistan succeed in managing 800 refugees.
She runs a kingdom. She can handle 800 people.
Oh, here it is. Knowing that many of the party, Tanis among them, considered her a nuisance, Lorana struggled to prove her worth. With Elistan, she found her chance. Daughter to the speaker of the Sons of the Qualinesti, she had been born and bred to politics. When Elistan was foundering among the rocks of trying to feed and clothe and control 800 men, women, and children, it was Lorana who stepped in and eased his burden. She had become indispensable to him, a fact Tanis found difficult to deal with. The half-elf gritted his teeth, letting his glance flick over Lorana to fall on Tika. I think this is from Tanis' point of view. That's why there's that side comment about like, oh, look at that old man. He's so gross. But I could see how young ladies would be liking him because he's dealing with his own stuff again.
That's exactly it. You're right. Yeah, again, his own, like, how dare my girlfriend not be totally into me even though I'm not at all into her?
Yeah, even though I threw the ring out. I threw the ring.
Yeah.
She was promised to you.
His whole gimmick here is basically like, you don't get to say no to me. I get to say no to you, but you have to still like me. You don't get to be independent. And Lorana in this book is like, excuse me? I'm not like the 12-year-old who fell in love with you, Tantalos. I am literally the princess. I can handle these. Like, if you're not going to let me, take part as an adult with you guys, I'm going to do the thing I was trained to do, which is handle all this.
Well, and it was pointed out to her that there was a flaw in her character, or, she was naive, and she is addressing it. She is like,
yeah,
Tanis isn't doing that.
Character growth. Literally nobody else in this whole
party
has shown any amount of character growth except for Lorana, who is sitting there going like, oh, I was a naive young child. All right, let me snap out of it. Let me fine, Tantalos, you don't want to be with me? Whatever. I don't care. I will move on. What can I do? What am I trained to do? I'm trained to handle people, handle logistics, handle, civilizational needs. Here's a void I can fill. Let me fill it. And I think that is such a brilliant, brilliant use of her. And it sets her character up so well because this whole book, it's like each of the books has the cover art, and on the cover art is like the main characters who tell the story of that book, right? And so in this one, with Lorana, with Kitiara, and with Tasselhoff, we get who our three main characters are. And Lorana is like the one who grows the most. Because by the end of this, she is the golden general, right? Like she has come into being the person she should be.
And we see more of the self-doubt here. He's like, why am I the leader? Why do they follow me?
Yeah, it's like, bro, just stop.
Yeah.
And of course, he's not the only one with jealousy issues because Race, who's lived his whole life with Caramon, is sitting there watching Caramon with his hot new young girlfriend. And he's like, what the hell, man?
He's like, wait, you're supposed to be making tea for me. And again, the same kind of thing. You're not allowed to have a life. Your life is me. But I get to treat you like crap. It's the same relationship that Raistlin has with Caramon that Tanis has with Lorana right now.
Oh, yeah. And there's a lot of codependency. There's a lot of like psychological trauma that they're dealing with. And one of the big driving forces of Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman's Dragonlance books is seeing what happens when you deal with this in a healthy way and grow and learn and evolve from it, and see what happens when you don't. And like, it's incredibly powerful. I mean, some of the most moving and powerful storytelling is watching Caramon grow as an independent person and give up his need to be around Raistlin all the time, and watching Tanis grow up as well. And I think there's a lot of really cool stuff that I didn't see as a kid that's there now.
It's been a long time since I read these. And, like I said, I've said before, this is the first time in maybe 15, 20 years I'm reading these books. But I have a distinct memory that Kitiara does not grow.
No.
And so
not at all.
She, not only does she not grow, but she can't see the growth in Caramon or Raistlin or Tanis. Sets up a good dichotomy for Tanis and the reader when we look at Lorana and we look at Kitiara. So much so that I can remember when reading this the first time being like, why is Tanis interested in this woman at all? Like,
right?
Not only is she like with the bad god, but she's also not a good person. She's not
She's using people.
Yeah, she might love you, but it's not a healthy love.
No, she doesn't love you. She just wants you to love her.
Yeah.
She wants to possess you as a trophy. That is not a healthy relationship. There's a lot of just these very tropish things, but I think Margaret and Tracy do a really healthy and interesting job exploring these and giving them like this part. Honestly, that's part of what makes Dragonlance so compelling for so long, is that these characters grow into being people and into being real, well realized characters.
Excited to be reading it for the first time with adult eyes and, some better ideas on what, character growth looks like and what functioning adults look like. I'm not just focusing on like, oh, cool battles with cool dragons.
Yeah, and then of course, we've got Flint and Taz, who are the comic relief in the back. And Taslov brings up the story of the woolly mammoth and the two deranged wizards that's being held by. That's a reference to two separate things. Well, it's a reference to one thing at this point in the story. It is a reference to the fact that the first ever Dragonlance story was called A Stone's Throw Away, and it was a story written by Roger Moore in Dragon Magazine, which was Taslov finds his magic ring that teleports him all over the place, and it takes him to this kingdom with these two, this wizard's tower with these two evil wizards who've got like a woolly mammoth in there, and also they summon Demogorgon, the Greyhawk god with two heads and stuff, because Dragonlance hadn't been really
set aside as its own thing,
formalized, or he was just creating and inventing Kender and showing him off to people. So Margaret and Tracy throw them a little bone here. It's a great story. It's in Magic Crin. You should read it if you haven't.
At the end, Tanis is, like I said, he's resentful and he doesn't know why he's the leader. And he says to himself, I don't have Sturm's driving quest to rid the land of dragons. I don't have Elistan's holy quest. I don't even have Raceland's burning quest for power. And again, instead of dealing with these things in a healthy manner, he's just he's bottling it up and being resentful. And we're going to see that at some point, I think.
Yes, because we're about to get into some real chaos. But that and Tarsus the Beautiful will be coming in our next episode of the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. Once again, I've been Shivam. This has been John. Thank you so much for joining us on this trek through Chronicles. We got through Autumn Twilight and we're just getting into the cold winter night. And this story is about to get real, real hot. And remember, once again, we have a Patreon at patreon.com/Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. And all of your support will help us continue to bring you this show. But in the meantime, thank you for joining. And we'll hear you next time. Hear you? See you. Talk to you? We'll talk to you next time. How about that?
Good night, folks.